Welcome everybody to the Wicked Smart webinar. I am delighted that you are here. My name is Teresa Tim. I am the Chief Innovation Officer and Partner for Midwest Family Services. Thrilled that you're here. I'm so excited to introduce you to our speaker today. But before I do that, I want to actually do a little bit of housekeeping. We do have a very intimate group today, so feel free to use the chat box. And anytime that Liza is speaking today and you've got a question, feel free to put that in the chat box and I'll happily make sure that gets facilitated to our speakers so we can get those questions answered. We will also have some time saved at the end to do some Q&A as well at the end of this presentation. Just note that we will be recording this and also sending you the link and the slides of the presentation today, sometime by tomorrow afternoon, so sit tight for that. And as I said, we do have a small group, so feel free, you can even open up your mic if you'd like and ask a question. We will happily facilitate those for you. But without further ado, I'm extremely excited to talk with you and invite you to meet our speaker today, Liza. And for some crazy reason, my screen is not changing. So I'm going to change it again and see if you guys can see this. Can you?
Oh my gosh, I'm wearing the same jacket.
You're on the same jacket, are you? So from the current slide, as we take a look at our guest speaker, Liza Voticky is hailing today from Toronto, Canada, and she is a global leader in talent acquisition. She's the CEO and founding partner of MXA Talent Solutions. And a little bit of a brief bio of Liza is she transformed the largest branch of Manpower into a profitable branch, with the highest satisfaction rates in Ontario, with the lowest turnover in the country. Led recruiting teams, for Coca-Cola, BMO Harris Bank, and Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines. And she's an expert in talent attraction, talent management, candidate experience, and talent marketing. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Liza, and I'm going to introduce you to our group, and you have the reins to drive your slides and teach us all the things that you know.
In 30 minutes or less.
30 minutes or less. Ready, go.
Ready? I'm ready. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, this looks great. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here and share with you my perspective on how you can think about redesigning your talent attraction plans to meet the future of hiring. My career started in the agency world as a staffing specialist quite some time ago. And I believe the most important lesson I learned about recruiting was to ask the right questions and then really actively listen for the answers. And it helped me develop a learning mindset. And so my perspective is always to come to obstacles or challenges from a place of curiosity. It's all about the and, right? And many people have heard that. For me, it's also about the what else or the what's next. And to me, today, that means what is the future of hiring? Oh, if I can get this thing to move, will be great. Okay, here we go. So taking time to design and define the experience that people will have when they engage with your brand is always top of mind for your sales and marketing teams. But when was the last time your recruiting team used the same guidance? So talent today is looking for the right place to land, not just the right job. Have you done the deep dive into your candidate, internal and external, and how they are experiencing your organization? If you were to review your company's marketing analytics of the various ways that they touch your customers or consumers, how does it compare to the experience that your candidates are having on your career site? And what would it look like if you were to be on the leading edge of seeing the attraction of talent as a marketing initiative? Having your talent attraction plan developed as a marketing plan versus an HR initiative aligned with an EVP or employee value proposition, what would that look like for you? So finding out where your candidates are, what are they looking for? Who's your competition? How does your career site align with your customer marketing approach? Are your candidates experiencing your company the way they expect to experience your company, or probably even better, hopefully you're giving them an experience that surprises and engages with them. But if you think of your recruiters as marketers, and this goes back, I remember having this conversation with the president of the North American Coke Bottling Organization, and I pointed out to him that the recruiters are touching more consumers every single day than any of his marketing initiatives. And so when you think about what it costs to go to market and create marketing initiatives, if you're not delivering on the same investment in your talent attraction space, you're cutting off, you're giving the competition a leg up that you may not necessarily want to be able to give them, especially in highly competitive talent markets. So a couple of little ideas here. These are, there's what's on the screen is really all about how to build that plan, the things you should be asking yourself. And I believe you'll be getting these slides, so you'll be able to, you don't have to speed read through it. But have your leaders do video clips and post them on your career site. And it doesn't have to be for a job that's open today. You could just spotlight some of your leaders, some of your talent, and have them talk about what it's like to work for your organization. You can use your iPhone to do it. It doesn't have to be a huge investment with a media company. Take a look at your job descriptions. Your job description should be more than a list of requirements and must-haves. Robert Woodruff led the Coca-Cola company for 30 plus years, and he's the one that turned it into an international company. He's the one that got the product into Europe and around the world during World War II. Do you know that he flunked out of 2 universities? Larry King had a high school education, became one of the most prolific interviewers on television and most well-known. Imagine if CNN hadn't hired him because their AI system in their ATS booted him out because he didn't have a university degree. And I am not saying that all jobs don't require a university degree, so please don't get me wrong. What I'm asking you to do is take a look at your job descriptions and really see them from a marketing lens. Look at them through the eyes of a candidate who wants to understand more about the company than just the requirements of a single job. And when you're hiring, hire for potential. So you may be hiring somebody for an hourly job in the warehouse, but what is their potential? Do you see a career path for this person? We often get tunnel vision and we just do the interview for the job that's open today. So, what I'm suggesting is that you open your mind a little bit and give yourself an opportunity to see beyond that. And then, does your selection process demonstrate your culture? Are you being transparent? Your communications that go out during the process, your emails or your auto responses from your systems, from your recruiters, from your hiring managers, are they reflective of who you are as an organization, or are they simply stock responses that go out and don't really engage with that candidate? And when you think about the interviews that you're conducting, are they about you, or is it an opportunity for the candidate to show you who they are? Because that's what you want to know. You want to know who they are, so that you can decide whether or not they should work for your organization. And you also want them to know who you are so that they make the right choice. And again, at the risk of repeating myself, be transparent, share. So let's talk a little bit now, unless anybody has a question, I'm going to pause for a minute. Okay.
Like any?
So let's talk about the difference between attracting talent versus acquiring talent. So about 2 years ago, together with my team, we concluded that we weren't in the business of acquiring talent anymore. We needed to attract talent and leverage the engagement people had with our brand to attract them to our roles. The millennials taught us through the beginning of the 21st century the vast difference between leading people and managing people. And as a result, leadership development and capability became the critical HR work over the past decade or so, along with rethinking workspaces into more collaborative environments with less of a hierarchical feel. Interestingly enough, now the millennials are all, approaching 40 and they're in leadership roles and they all want a private office today. But, we learned our lesson, right? We went through some change. Now we have the iGen or Gen Z, talent that we are hiring today. They're teaching us new lessons as they enter the workforce. They know their value. They are confident in what they bring to the table. And to attract them, your culture and values must be attractive to them. So they research your company. They are generally attracted by the marketing for your company. So culture isn't easy for them to uncover. And that's where the TA space comes in. So your company is doing the marketing. Somebody sees that and thinks looks like a cool company. And then they come to your website. So what are you showing them and how are you showing it to them? So how do you move beyond your commercials or your advertising and marketing plans and build an employment brand and a talent marketing approach that draws top talent to your organization? Well, this is what they're looking for. So talent today, and it doesn't really matter what generation they are because we're now all globally connected and people know what they know and they know what they want. And most of all, they look at values in an organization. Talent Board did a survey recently, and 25% of employees said that they would leave their current employer when opportunities opened up because of the way the pandemic was handled by that company. So they are looking at a company's values. They want to feel like they belong. They want to feel like they're contributing. They look for work-life balance. And this is all areas of work, hourly employees, professional employees. Culture is important to them. They not only want to be a part of your culture in your organization, but they want their culture to be included and they want to feel as though their culture is respected. They want creativity. They're very creative. There's a lot more available to them today. So their mind is more creative. They're very expansive. They want to be able to grow and develop. And then of course, ultimately prosperity, right? Everybody wants to get paid a fair wage and everybody wants to feel that they're valued. So what has the pandemic taught us? As I was saying before, we did a lot of leadership capability and development work over the past decade to prepare our leaders for multi-generational leadership. We hold classes on coaching and behavioral interviewing, check, check. One of my clients recently said to me, we give them these big interview guides, but they don't think they really use them. So one day of behavioral interviewing does not turn a hiring manager into an expert on talent selection. It's important to keep that in mind. That's an ongoing process. So here's the question. Has your organization transformed into a culture of coaching, a culture of ensuring interviews have the candidate at the center instead of the leader? Do you share candidate feedback with your leaders? So after an interview, we do a debrief with the leader. Recruiters are also debriefing the candidate. How often are you sharing that information with leaders so they can understand how they're being perceived? Right? And even more importantly, a shift in culture is required. But what about the results of selecting talent being tied to a leader's overall performance? There's an organization out there right now that actually gives their recruiters access to source their own employees on LinkedIn and look for the ones that are looking for work, because a recruiter seat, you can do that on LinkedIn. And entice them to stay by offering them other opportunities that come in. So proactively sourcing your own internal candidates, that's really something, right? But also taking that selection of talent and tying that to your leader's overall performance. If they're hiring 20 people a year and they have a 60% turnover rate, and they're still being told that they're high performers as leaders, there's a miscommunication there somehow, right? So thanks to the challenges over the past year, we've had to change when it comes to the virtual hiring. And it's really important to remember that not everybody is comfortable with video conversations. So some organizations have become so reliant on the technology. We're hearing a lot of surveys on candidates that are telling us that they get ghosted or they just don't get any feedback. So it's really important to remember, despite the technology issues, this is a people selection process, and we need to maintain that people connectivity. And then marketing, of course, has become even more critical. So social media, virtual events are the way we are getting out there to meet people. So are your leaders prepared for that? Do they understand that what they're putting on LinkedIn or what they're doing on social media is impacting how they're being seen as potential leaders for somebody who's doing their homework on your company? And really, understanding the needs, wants, and yes, even demands of the talent that's out there today. I've heard things like, well, it's an employer's market, unemployment is high. No, it isn't. And I've been recruiting for a very long time through quote unquote employers markets and employee markets. At the end of the day, whether unemployment is at 2% or unemployment is at 12%, talent is still in demand. talent is in demand. And changing your mindset to understand that you need to market to them to attract them to you, right? That's my recommendation, and that's how I see the future of hiring and how to execute on the future of hiring. So what is the future of hiring in a nutshell? Try to break this down for you. So hiring leaders who are engaged in both talent marketing and talent attraction. So leveraging their networks, leveraging their communities to help attract the talent to their organization. A hiring process that's built on the internal and external stakeholder experience. And that's everyone from the recruiter to the internal candidate who's applying for a promotion, to the external candidate who's trying to get into your company, the hiring manager, the HR business partner, and everyone in between. The flexibility to shift between technology and in-person, where we believed that our final decisions all had to be done in person. That may not be the way we're doing things everywhere in the future, because work from home has become work from everywhere. I actually know some people that have gone down to Caribbean islands and they're working from there versus being up here. So really it has become work from anywhere for a lot of jobs, not all, but for a fair number of jobs. And job descriptions, I'm going to keep harping on that. So leveraging them as a recruiting tool for attracting talent, making sure that they're built to attract people to your organization, not to disqualify people. And then a clear focus on the unconscious bias in attraction, screening, and selection. So there is nothing that is let me try to rephrase that. We are human beings, and so we have human frailties, and it is quite normal in a human being to select someone who makes them comfortable. And often what that means is they're hiring in their own likeness. And so you miss the opportunity to invite difference to the table and to allow diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of gender, culture, all of those things. So diversity isn't just one box that we need to tick. It's really about thinking about the unconscious bias that drives our attraction, screening, and selection processes. And clear employment branding that showcases your culture. Be transparent. If you take anything away from this, be curious and be transparent. Those are my two guiding lights. And then a strong recruiter strategy that's built with marketing, HR, and leadership to deliver on the company hiring objectives. Your recruiting and hiring, not just your external hiring, but your internal movement, is one of the most strategic things that you can leverage in a company to help drive business growth. Because without the right people in the right jobs at the right time, the company is not going to meet its objectives. And I think I did that really fast. So we have some time for questions.
Lisa, thank you. That was really great. And as we're looking at people putting questions in the chat, could you maybe expand a little bit upon that unconscious bias and any tools or any strategy to help us as recruiters not go down that path? What recommendation would you have? And if you'd like to, as you're thinking about that, stop your screen share so I can bring mine up.
Sure.
Because I think that's a real true statement when you hire or you're attracted to people that are like you, when we're missing a lot of opportunity and missing the boat on that diversity of thinking.
Let me just get to this. I cannot expand you because I'm sharing. So hang on. How do I
just stop? Can you stop your share?
I'm trying. I can't get the button up because let me just go. Oh, right there.
Okay. Yeah, so if you can speak to, are there any ideas that you can come up with regarding how to help alleviate that unconscious biasness of missing the opportunity of actually diversity in thinking, diversity in mindset from your own?
Right. So there are lots of good courses out there and reading and probably even books on unconscious bias. I first did an unconscious bias program through Hewitt several years ago that was a week long. I mean, there's There's lots of ways to approach it depending on what the challenge is, which is one of the things that we do at MXA, which is sit down with companies and figure out where those gaps are. Unconscious bias is really overcome when people become aware. And that can be done in a workshop, that can be done with guides or material. Recruiters are less likely to use unconscious bias because they're professionals at selecting and assessing talent, if that makes sense. So they look for body language, they look at experience, they look at what, not only what's written on the page, but how that person is interacting with them. So they tend to be a little bit more open-minded than the average hiring manager I found. But we can certainly, I could certainly follow up with you and send you some of the books I have and some of the documents I've read or training that I've had. But that is certainly an opportunity that we would take as an organization, a consulting organization, to come in and take a look at what the issues are. You can't solve it all. Some companies have bigger problems than others.
Correct.
In some cases, it's just a matter of really looking at your job descriptions and saying, well, these are all focused in the wrong place. Or we found in campus recruiting in the past that we were going to schools that our hiring managers wanted us to go to because it was their alma mater. Well, if you're going to the same school, then the people you're hiring have the same experience and probably the same background and probably the same life experience. So you're not opening up the gates, so to speak, to give people from different perspectives an opportunity. It is about your process. It is about your process. You do have to have the right tools and processes in place in your recruiting process to make sure that you're analyzing and looking for that unconscious bias and pulling it out of the process every time you see it.
Terrific. Thank you. As we're looking for questions to come in, here's a couple, I think, here. Let's see. What is the question? How would you recommend building the job description to give job details but not overwhelm the post? We've had someone tell us that it was way too much for the pay. How do we change that viewpoint?
Well, that's where you want someone who really understands the talent marketing piece to take a look at your job descriptions in general. We always found that, or I've always found that job descriptions tend to be a hot potato. Nobody really wants to own it, and it really should be owned in the TA space because recruiters see more of those things and understand and get the feedback about those things. I've always worked with a TA operations team, so they owned the job description. Let's call it archives, where, I mean, you can imagine at a company like Coca-Cola, I think we had over 80,000 different job descriptions. And in other organizations, leaders would just write one if they wanted to. So the recruiter as a talent advisor needs to take a look at that job description and really pull out of it, again, align with marketing, align with HR, but pull out of it what are the critical points that will attract someone to investigate that job a little bit more and at least give you the opportunity to decide whether they're in or whether they're out.
Thank you. Another question is, when you think about the hiring process and the touches, recommendations on, especially in the environment that we're still currently in most of our states and most of the country, what is the first touch when somebody, actually is interested in a position, they've done some search and they're inquiring about a position? Would you recommend a video conference call right away if in-person is not available, or a phone call? How would you start the process?
Yeah. So again, it depends on how easily you're attracting people. Some recruiters will get overwhelmed just because of the brand and the interest in people working for the company. So it's not a one size fits all. At Coca-Cola, for example, we put some automation in so that people who were not at all qualified would be invited to join the talent network and be declined for that role, and it would all be automated. So that's where AI comes into play. And that's why I say you got to be careful about what you put into your AI if you're hiring a clerk in a call center or a call center person. Do they really have to have a Bachelor of Science degree? So you got to be careful about those things. But in a smaller organization where the recruiter isn't overwhelmed with hundreds and hundreds of applicants in 48 hours, then it's a matter of that recruiter taking the time to look at that person's qualifications, what they bring to the table. And yes, I would recommend reach out with an email, set up an appointment, and have that video phone call. I always do too. I do when I'm recruiting, I do a conversation with them, whether by video or just by phone. I'd spend 20 minutes to half an hour with them, just really making sure we're on the same page and they're in the same ballpark. And once I've screened it down to about 10 candidates that I think are good, I will hold 45-minute video interviews with them and then screen it down even more. So I have 3 to 5 on the final slate.
That's terrific. Could you give advice on how to leverage your own networks to be able to attract and promote your culture as a recruiter?
Sure. Well, LinkedIn is probably one of the best, just because it's so big. I think there's like 2 billion people on there now. People tend to connect with people on LinkedIn who have like careers, who are in the same industry, who've gone to the same schools. And so like I'm pretty careful about my network on LinkedIn, or have been in the past, because there's a lot of sales that comes in. So when I was on the corporate side of things and I was getting inundated with people selling to me, I would not accept their invitations to connect. But I personally have a LinkedIn network of over 4,000 people. So, and then most of them are in the HRTA space. So if I'm looking for a recruiter, I'm just going to put it out there on my page and share it with my 4,000 connections and say, I'm looking for a recruiter here to do this. So they will send me referrals. So that is one of the easiest ways. And it has really developed over the years. They're not cheap. LinkedIn is quite expensive. So you have to think about that. On your personal social media, just be careful. You can share things on Facebook saying, by the way, if any of my friends know anybody, but you are putting business connections out there. You're telling people where you work, and you're giving them an opportunity to connect with you and see some of your personal life. So you may want to be careful with that. I will confess that my Facebook is not my business name. It's my married name. So I separate my social networking from my business networking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes you want to be transparent, but not that transparent.
Not that transparent. No, my political opinions are mine and my family's. So
Excellent advice. Any questions for Liza? We have her here. I'm monitoring the chat. I don't see any at this point. Notice that on the screen, if you do have questions, you can feel free to email me at the address that you see on the screen. As I said, if you found value in this presentation and didn't take copious notes, you will be able to receive not only the recording, but also Liza's slides today. From today, they will happen sometime tomorrow afternoon by noonish, I'm guessing. If you liked what you heard, please like, share, and comment. I do see something blinking at me, so one moment before we actually sign off. Sure. Here's a question. We've been invited to help a small police department recruit.
Wow.
They need 100 people to get 3 people.
Yeah, Tammy, that is not unusual. I mean, I was quoted once as having a recipe, but I figured this out. I'm going to say it when I was at Manpower. From 100 people, you will actually consider 50 of them. Of those, you may send emails to 25. Of those, you'll speak to 10. And out of those, you'll get 3. The math has never really changed. So it doesn't surprise me. And especially if you're thinking about the police force, I mean, they've got a lot more criteria that you need to drill down on. I would recommend, if you're doing that, some deep behavioral interviews, really working on not only on their behaviors in their past employment, but really their capabilities and their resilience and that sort of thing, especially in today's world. I would recommend that you spend time there.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, Liza, this was fantastic. Oh, wait. Oh, there is another blinky. We'll keep going.
I was just saying good advice.
Oh, good advice. Okay, thanks, Tam.
So anybody can reach me on the mxats.com website. We have we're looking for early childhood teachers, and finding someone qualified is hard. Well, you know what I always used to say to my leaders who told me they were looking for people with hard to fill skills? We don't have a factory to manufacture them. So that's where the strategy, maybe one day we will, that's where the strategy comes into play. If you go back to my slides and take a look at the first slide, it's where are your candidates? That's the homework that your marketing team does when they're trying to sell. That's the homework you've got to do when you're trying to recruit. Where are they? Who's my competition? And what do I need to tell them in order to attract them to us?
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So tomorrow's,
You're welcome.
let's see.
I'm answering the thank you note.
And for some reason, my screen is acting bizarro land. So I'm going to stop share and just share our next presentation in 2 weeks and who our speaker is. He is a wizard partner. I'll just make sure you guys can see that. Up next will be Johnny Molson. It's the secret power of message alignment. He is a marketing consulting strategy with the Wizard of Ads. That will be happening in 2 weeks from today. The topic is connecting your message from inside, the way your customer, again, and back again, in one of the most biggest missed opportunities, and it's mostly free in this case. In the workshop, you'll learn how to align that message through all channels, what exactly you should say to align and why, and how it impacts employee culture, the big one that everybody misses. So that will be in 2 weeks from today for our next Wicked Smart. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Liza, this was fantastic.
Thanks.
I bid you all a farewell and adieu, and we will see you in 2 weeks, and be looking for the slides and the recording as soon as tomorrow noon. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the day.